Hi everyone, I'm Victor Schneider and I'm a candidate for the City of Norwood's mayor's position. I put together an intro that was used, I think it was used at one of the debates, but I'll just read that off because I think it's such a great intro. Victor Schneider has been a resident of the city since 1972. He's married to his lovely and talented wife, Debbie. She's in the crowd here. They've raised 4 children in Norwood. Victor and Debbie are active in many groups and organizations. Victor has a very positive view about the new direction that the city of Norwood is moving forward in. He feels strongly that Norwood is a community that is on the rise. It's interesting because at the beginning of this campaign season, I put together a program on Facebook and sort of put it out there. And one of the items that it talked about was that Norwood is a city that is barely alive. And over these last really 7 months, 8 months, I've come to know that there are so many people in this community that are pushing forward and working hard to sort of overcome that perception. And it was a perception that I had as a longtime resident of the city of Norwood. I really felt like at the beginning of this election process, I really felt like we weren't as engaged, and I think many other community members felt that we weren't as engaged. But as we worked through this election process, I've become fully aware that there are so many good people in this city, and we're not barely alive, we are thriving, and we are moving in the right direction. This campaign is critical because this is the first time in years that we will have new leadership in the mayor's seat. And I think when I say it's critical, a lot of people say, well, every election's critical. They always say this is the most important election. This is a very important election for the city of Norwood. And for many reasons. The city has went through transitions, and we've metamorphosed many times through years. But this city is sitting really at a great position to have a very long run, a sustainable run of productive, really interesting times to be in the city of Norwood. So I've been involved with the city of Norwood's municipal government since about 2000. That's really when I started to get involved in it. So I've lived here since 1972. It took until 2000 that I started getting involved in the municipal government in the city of Norwood. And I'll tell you why. I worked for Cincinnati Millicron, and that changed hands, and the business evolved and changed. So I was working as a director of business development for them. I was the East Region sales manager, and I was away from home a lot. And my children were young, and I was sort of looking around for a new position. I wanted a position that was closer to home, and I wanted to be home in the evenings. I was leaving home on basically Sunday night or Monday morning. I wouldn't come back until Thursday or Friday, and then I was back out Sunday or Monday again. So at that point, I was involved in some community projects. A big one was the local festival, and I was the festival chairperson. I got to know one of the people that was running a booth at the festival was the safety service director's wife. So I got to know her a little bit, and then it sort of just ran from there. I met the safety service director, found out that the city had a position that was open, got to know the mayor a little bit, and was offered a position with the city of Norwood. So I came on as the superintendent of public work, or as the service director at that time. So the safety service director position is combined now, but at that time they had a service director and a safety director. I came on as the service director, worked in that role for a period of time, and then council combined the two positions. And part of it was a cost-saving measure, part of it was sort of politically motivated, but mostly cost-saving measure. When that happened, I became the superintendent of public works. So there was a different position. I was moved to that position. All of these are appointed positions by the mayor. I worked in that position for a while, and then the mayor got sick, and I was lucky enough to build a relationship with a lot of people in the community, and the central committee of the party that the mayor was in charge from, the Republican Party, appointed me to be the mayor. So I was the mayor for 6 months at that time, appointed, and then I ran for election, and I lost to the current mayor. So that was a long time ago, 16 years ago. And since then, I got on council for a couple of terms. I was a council at large member for 3 different terms, which is 6 years. I did a program right here in this studio. I'm pretty comfortable with this studio because I did a program here for for many years called Quick 20. It was a pre-program before a council meeting. I got off of council because there were good candidates. There were good people that were involved in the community at that time. There were good people that were sitting on council, and there were good people that wanted to be elected to council. So I stepped back. Another part was that my son was playing basketball. High school basketball games are on Tuesdays. Council meetings are on Tuesday. As you can tell, that's, so there's some times that change and you just move on from there. Well, that was part of what I was doing. So then later on, I sort of stepped back from politics. I wasn't involved in the city at all. I did my day job, and I really didn't worry too much about it. Well, then here recently, in the last 2 years, the Republican Party was having some challenges, so I got back involved with the Republican Party. Took on the role as the chairman of the party, took on the role as the chairperson of the Republican Club. It was really a tough time for the Republican Club. So my wife Debbie and I got involved in that. There was the first few meetings that we had, it was my wife and actually my mother and myself at the meeting and just trying to get people back together. So we sort of rebuilt it from there. And that's what, for the last 2 years, we've been doing. We've been rebuilding and sort of putting people in place and bringing people together. I believe wholeheartedly in the two-party system. I do believe that the Democrats and the Republicans, the two-party system is a good system. It's yin and yang. There are checks and balances. There are people that are challenging the ideas and decisions that are being made, and that's a good way to do business. There needs to be lively discussion. There needs to be debate. There needs to be those questions asked, and I think that that's one of the important parts of it. So when it came this time to putting together a team of candidates, I was instrumental in putting that team together. This time, for the first time in years, the Republican Party of the city of Norwood put out a first call. We said, we're looking for candidates. If you're interested in being a candidate for a city position, for an elected position within the city, contact us. Instead of going out and talking to people and begging them to run for office, we actually said, come to us and let's talk. And we'll talk about what your goals are and what you want to accomplish and what we think, how that works together. And so that was an important aspect of it. And I think that the Republican Party this time has a team of candidates that are engaged because they want to be, because they asked to be, and they're putting out the effort. And I feel like the same for me. When it came to the mayor's position, we went out and talked to different people, and that was one position where I was out talking to people and trying to get really the most qualified person to run as a mayor candidate. We were not as successful as I'd hoped in coming up with some solid candidates at the time that the petitions had to be put in. So I ended up pulling petitions, which is what is necessary. You do that at the end of last year, beginning of the year, you have to get these petitions in. So we got the petitions in. And then as I talked to my family and I talked to different community members, I started realizing, I've got some good qualifications. I think I am a good candidate for this. So that's how I ended up being a candidate for mayor for the city of Norwood. It all came down to, well, what can I bring to the table? And with this team, with these people that are running, do I feel comfortable that these are the right people? And I really do. And not to say that there aren't really good people running for other positions and with the other side. But I think we have a great group of people that really have what the best interest of the community in mind. So I feel really blessed and honored to be able to run as mayor for the city with this team and with the other candidates that are out there. Through this election season, remember I talked about the city being barely alive. Through this election season, what I've came up with is, or what I've learned from people is there's so many positive people out there with incredible ideas. And, there are some people that have some strange ideas and some strange agendas, and you wonder where they're coming from. But most of the people I meet are very positive about what the city can be and what we can make it. And they get behind, they're ready to get behind a positive person that wants to make things happen. So that's incredibly important to me, and it's a strength of this community. So let's talk about some of my skills and what makes me the most qualified candidate, because I've only got a few minutes. I started out my career working for the village of Amberley, which is a small municipality, right? I was working in the public works department. That's where I got my start. My background is industrial and agricultural mechanics. So I did that for a few years, and then I decided I wanted to go and try the private sector. And that's when I left to go to Cincinnati Millicron, and I spent years there But before I left, I went through training to become a certified police officer. I'd went through training to become a certified firefighter. Those were career paths that I looked at closely. I went through the training. It didn't work out exactly the way I maybe thought it would. There were some positions that I would have liked to have received, but at that time, some of the doors didn't open. So that's okay. You know, I moved on. Those are interesting, and a lot of people look at different career choices through their career. But those were two things, and I think those are two critically important aspects of my life and of my background. So interestingly enough, I'd moved from there. I'd worked for Cincinnati Millicron, and actually it was a semiconductor manufacturing plant where we had a lot of chemicals and a lot of gases. So I was the emergency response team chief. I was always involved in sort of the emergency services part of it. I did some production management, superintendent there, a lot of different work in that capacity. My current job is I'm working with Town Properties as a director of business development for them. But I had worked in property management before, so my certification is in community management. I'm actually licensed in community management. A lot of that training, the certification and licensing, goes over a lot of things that are directly relate to the job as mayor of the city of Norwood. It is an executive position, but they don't expect you to be an expert in everything. That's where you put a good staff in place. That's where you bring all the right people in place, and you have to get a good staff in place to operate the city properly and to really work, for those people to work as a partner and a guide to the mayor and, quite frankly, to council and others. That's an important part of it. And that I think that community association background gives me the experience to help with that. Some of those certifications we do go through human resources training and administration, budgets, reserves, investments, and assessments, contracting, financial controls. There's a lot of different areas that you have to get involved in to get those certifications. So, in closing, I think I've got 2 minutes left. I think I've hit on a lot of the things that are important to me. I could talk a little bit about some volunteer efforts. People always say, well, what have you done in the community? What makes you think you can be the leader of this community? I've been involved in a lot of stuff, and a lot of it my wife has pulled me into, but a lot of things I've done because they're near and dear to my heart. The American Cancer Society, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Knights of Columbus, United Way, the festival, I've talked about that. I've been doing that for years, and the Norwood Band Boosters, I really had a lot of fun with the Norwood Band Boosters. Meals on Wheels, those are some of the different ones. People working cooperatively, Walnut Hill Soup Kitchen. So those are important aspects of it. I have the home plan out there. I would like for you to look at the norwoodrepublicans.com webpage. There's interesting information on the whole slew of candidates, the whole crew. But the Norwood, the home plan is an important aspect. If you read the home plan, which is on my Facebook page, which is Schneider for Mayor, you'll see pretty quickly some of the items that I think are important moving forward with the city of Norwood. Last but not least is each Republican candidate has went and signed off on the Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics is something that I came up with, and I said as a leader for the city, we need to put in place some rules, some parameters on how we're going to treat each other and how we're going to treat the staff and how we're going to treat the constituents. And that's what this Code of Ethics is. So it really talks about treating each other fairly. And, the golden rule is treat others as you would expect to be treated. And I think that if we as elected officials and as appointed officials treat the people of Norwood fair and consistently and with respect, then it's a win-win for all of us. So I think I'm about out of time. Thank you very much for your time. Vote Schneider, please. You see the sign. They're all around the community. So please do vote for Victor Schneider for mayor.